Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning, friends. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. I am so excited to have you joining me today. All right, you guys, so we are going to dive right into the topic. I asked my Instagram followers a couple weeks ago, what do you want to hear? What do you really need to hear on this podcast? And I got several submissions, and they were all so super helpful. But I wanted to cover this week the submissions that kind of mirrored one another. I don't know if the same person wrote in twice or if it just so happens to be something that multiple people are feeling. But it's all around the flavor of being at a plateau, feeling like you're failing in your self-work. And also whenever you feel like you're just taking steps back versus going forward. So I feel like all of those things kind of mirror one another, and we should talk about it. Now, what I wish I would have done the day that I asked this question anonymously and people were writing in, I wish I would have further prompted more questions to whoever asked this just to see why maybe they feel like they're failing, because the thing about it is everybody's reasoning can be different of why they feel they're at a plateau, why they feel they're failing in their self-work, why they feel that they're taking steps back instead of forward. So I didn't ask those questions, but I have been here. So I'm going to do my absolute best to share what I see, like whenever clients are going through this, and what I have experienced whenever I have felt this same thing in my own self-work, because I think it's quite common and there's a very sneaky reason as to why, but I think it's good to talk about because here's what I see happen. A lot of times there is this level of excitement when we learn that there is inner work or self-work that we can do on ourselves. We get really excited because we kind of experience this whole new world where we've been living within the limits of our brain. We've been living with limitations. We've been living in kind of a box. And when you start inner work and self-work, you realize maybe for the first time in your life that you don't have to live in that box, that the world is full of possibility, other things are possible. So it's kind of like going your entire life or like the first 20, 30, 40 years of your life, believing that whatever job you're in right now is going to be the job that you retire from or the job that you die at, right? Which sounds a little morbid, but truthfully, that's how people think. They don't know that they can give themselves permission to start over or to do something else or to pursue their dreams. They're living within a box. They're living within limits. Same thing if you've tolerated nonsense out of relationships your entire life, dating or married. And when you start doing inner work and you start healing, you realize oh, there's other possibilities. Oh, maybe this is how I attracted that person or that partner. Oh, I didn't realize that, this and this behavior or this and this reaction is not normal, or that I can have more or experience better treatment or whatever it is. So there's so many flavors of people that really feel stuck in what they're experiencing now. And when you get that first taste of, oh, this is just my experience because this is the only perspective I've had for the last few years, and this gets to be different, it's a very exciting time. So I think whenever we get that experience or have that experience and we start the journey of self-work, all of it in the beginning, while it can be challenging, is driven by a lot of excitement and motivation to get ourselves to a place that's different than maybe what we're experiencing now. And when you're doing the work and doing the work and doing the work, you're peeling back more and more and more and more layers. You're uncovering a lot about yourself. And then there comes the point where you just feel challenged. And I recently talked about this with my clients in the hybrid experience. One of the concepts that we cover kind of focuses on, the point in time in which you're not who you used to be, but you're not quite who you want to be, or you're not quite at the point of, like you haven't arrived to the destination that you see in your mind, that vision that you're curating and working towards every day. And so it's kind of like being in the messy middle. And that messy middle is hard for a lot of people because it can be very lonely. The people that you have had in your life for a very long time don't necessarily understand you as much or relate to you as much. They're staying where they've always been. And that's where you maybe used to be, and you're not quite there, but you don't know, like, do I want to spend all of my time with them? Do I want to find new horizons, new groups of friends, new people? How do I fit into this stage that I'm in? You're not quite to the level of being, again, where you want to be, but you're stuck in what I like to call the messy middle. And this can be a point in our journey where it just feels very, very challenging. Okay. And then I think that there's a third stage up from that. And that is the part where sometimes we feel like we've hit a plateau, or we feel like, man, I was doing so good in my self-work. I was really like moving forward. I was making changes. I was very proud of myself for everything that I was doing. I was learning a lot and uncovering so much about myself. And now I just feel stuck again, a new kind of stuck. Like I'm not the old me, but I'm not necessarily where I want to be. I just kind of feel like maybe I'm floating. Maybe I'm floating outside of myself a little bit. I feel like I'm disappointing myself, or I'm not moving as quickly as I want to be, or I don't feel like I'm moving quickly at all. Things feel stagnant. Things feel just stuck, right? That plateau that feels just challenging. I think that a lot of people get to this point, or they feel like they're failing in their self-work because they're not quite where they want to be. And that is what I want to talk about. Let's talk about why you maybe feel like you're here. Okay, so I'm going to give you the most direct answer ever. It's probably not going to feel like an epiphany, but it's the truth of what I experienced and sometimes still experience, because I'm always growing to new levels, and what I watch my clients experience. My perspective is that when you get to a place when you feel like you're failing in your self-work, or you've plateaued, or you're not moving forward like maybe you think you should, what I really believe happens to us at this point is that we experience a disconnect between where we're trying to go, where we currently are, and the resistance that we're coming up against in our brain to push through the discomfort. So let me break this down a little bit. What do we know about our brain? Our brain is designed to keep us safe. Our brain is designed to make everything autopilot, very comfortable and predictable. That's what it likes. That is what it thrives off of. That's why a lot of people are walking around in the world not changing a ton. Without self-awareness work, most people will generally be pretty much the same, with the same patterns, the same, habits, maybe the same jobs, the same people in their life, the same house, all the same things, right? And it's because our brain really likes it there. That's what our brain looks for. It wants us to be safe. It wants us to be comfortable. And when things are predictable for us, our brain does the least amount of work. It doesn't really have to work. So when you start doing self-development work, self-awareness work, emotional intelligence, mindset, you're growing, you're evolving, you're trying new things, in the beginning, as I stated, it feels very exciting because you're like, oh, the world of possibilities. I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know that was possible. This is so exciting. And then you go through what a lot of us refer to in the coaching industry as like the river of misery, where you're like, oh my gosh, I just feel so lonely and so disconnected. And I feel like I have nobody who understands me. I'm just doing all of this work, but the people around me aren't. They don't get it. They don't understand. This feels hard. And then you get to the point where like, I've plateaued. I'm going backwards. I don't feel like I'm growing anymore. I feel like I'm stuck. I don't know what's after this. Why am I so resistant? Why am I failing at all of the things that I'm doing when in the beginning it seemed to be working well? And the reason being is because you're in the position of your self-work where your brain feels a lot of resistance for actually making changes that will stick, or making decisions that feel wildly uncomfortable to get you wherever you're trying to go. So with any of our self-work, I think a lot of us have an idea of the destination we would like to arrive to. But that doesn't mean that our brain is not going to brain, okay? Again, the brain loves ease and comfort and predictability and whatever it can put on autopilot. When you have a destination that you're trying to arrive to, that often means that you're going to have to make decisions that feel challenging and hard, that are not already in your programming or your habits or, the things that you typically do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You're having to make new, powerful decisions. And a lot of times those decisions are very, very uncomfortable. The other way that I refer to this is using the phrase choosing your hard. All of us at any given point are always choosing our hard. So here's what I mean by this. I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I'm going to bring it here in connection with if you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like you're at a plateau, if you feel like you were doing really good at all of your self-help work and now you just feel so much resistance. Like maybe you're just like, oh, I don't even want to do this anymore. I don't even want to work on myself anymore. What's the point? Like if that's what you're feeling, first, I just want to tell you, normal. Okay, your brain is coming up against a lot of resistance. It may also be coming up against the fact that you're freaking tired. Do you understand? And I know you probably do because you're working on yourself. But for people who are not, they probably don't understand how challenging this work is. And it is even more challenging when you're actually implementing the things that you're learning versus just listening to things. So yes, there is work that you can be doing by reading books, listening to podcasts, watching TED Talks, or informational things about self-help and personal development. Those things can grow you. Yes, that's how I started in my journey, and I loved it. I could eat it all up. I listened to every podcast. I read so many books. Like I ate it up. And then I did my consult call, which was really hard because I felt myself being challenged on that consult call, having to make a decision of whether I was actually going to commit to doing the work or not. Long story short, I obviously said yes. Okay. And then when I started working with my coach, that was a whole other level. I laugh so often because my clients who will begin coaching with me, right? A lot of my clients these days are people who found me on the podcast. So maybe you've been listening to the podcast for years. Maybe this is your first episode. Maybe you've been listening for months. listening to the podcast is very minimal compared to the work you will do when you hire a coach, whether that is me or someone else. And I always giggle because I have clients, it never fails, at least a few times a year. We will be in a session and I don't know, like they could be crying, they could be experiencing some like just discomfort, they could be experiencing some anger with things that they're working on. And they will look at me on Zoom because we do all the calls on Zoom, and they will be like, this is so much harder than the freaking podcast. And I'm always like, of course, because on the podcast or reading a book or watching informational or informative, speeches, it's passive. You listen to it. It resonates. It sounds good. But at the end of the day, whether or not you implement it is up to you. You could know the information all day long. You could rehearse to me every single one of my podcast episodes. Rehearsing it and knowing it is very different from doing it. Doing it is hard ass work, okay? When you're healing, when you're working through and figuring out like why you're triggered about certain things, why traumas keep coming up, why you're struggling in certain relationships, why you're tolerating certain things, why you're people pleasing, like when you're working on the why, and then you're also working on the how do I go to, how do I change this after years and years and years of habits and programming and conditioning? That's a whole different caliber from reading a book or doing a podcast. So you could also be against, like if you feel like you're at a plateau, if you feel stuck, if you felt like in the beginning you were healing so well and you were doing so well, and now you're like, God, why do I keep failing? I'm failing in all my self-work. Like I just feel like I'm taking steps backwards versus forwards. I feel like I've hit a plateau. It could also be that your brain is just tired. Right? Give it some grace. Give it some grace, because it could just be like, wow, I never realized just how hard it is to look at all of my stuff rather than shove it away. Now, if you've signed up for my free, course or training called Cope Better, you understand that with a lot of our emotions and a lot of our thinking and our limitations, we shove that in what I call our metaphorical locker. And we never look at it. And most people in the world are navigating with a crap ton of things in their locker. And when you hire a coach, guess what we're doing? We're cleaning out the locker one by one. The emotions, the things you're storing, the things you don't want to see, the things that you haven't learned yet. We're doing all of that. So it's very possible that the reason you even feel like you're at a plateau is because your brain is like, I'm so freaking tired. Please don't make me keep going. I'm just so tired. I can remember having moments like that where I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so fatigued with working on myself. It's not for the faint of heart. It is not always easy. And what comes from doing it is amazing. But when you're in that kind of in between, it's really, really hard. And I just want to acknowledge that, because I think sometimes we think this is going to be easy. I'm just going to be fixed or like healed, or we think we're broken. And we just think like magically it's all going to change in, a few weeks, a few months, sometimes even just a year. I remember one of the most painful things my coach ever said to me. Oh my gosh, I still can feel in my body how daunting it was. When I started my journey, I had had 17 years of therapy, but I had never had coaching. And when I started coaching with my coach, I could only afford group coaching. I couldn't afford to hire my coach one-on-one. I was 24 years old when I hired her. I was like broke as a joke. I was working as an occupational therapist. That was my career. I didn't have many kids on my caseload. So my paychecks really went to all of the bills that, at the time, my boyfriend, who's now my husband, we were splitting everything 50-50 and we were barely making ends meet. I really didn't even have the money for coaching. And we used to bicker about my investments in coaching because I technically couldn't afford it. But I knew if I didn't do something different in my life, one, our relationship probably wouldn't even last because I had so many things to sort through. I was triggered by every little thing. I, was angry. I was harboring so much unhealed stuff between family and blah, 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 on and on. You get it. So even though I couldn't afford it, I was like, I can't afford not to do it. Like, I will figure it out. And to say that it was, challenging is an understatement. There were times I had a negative bank account balance and would have to wait days before my next paycheck. But I was showing up on my coaching calls. You better believe it, but it was hard. But I remember my coach very vividly saying, Macy, you may be another 2 years out before you even know what you want to do with your life. Because when I started coaching with her, like, one thing that I did know is I had all of these dreams, but I didn't know what career I wanted to do. And I knew in my gut, I didn't want to be an occupational therapist forever. What was very clear to me whenever I would think about being an occupational therapist for the next 40 years of my life or retiring as an occupational therapist, it made me feel so trapped. Like, I loved what I did I worked with babies. I worked with birth to age 3. I love the families, but I hated healthcare. I hate the politics of healthcare. I hate the money in healthcare. And when I say money, I hate like the hierarchy of how things work and how you can't really truly help people because it's about the bottom dollar. It's about productivity. So you can't see people as people really when you're in the healthcare field the way that you want to, because there are all of these rules about how you have to do everything. Anyways, that's a rabbit hole that I won't go down, but I didn't like that. Like, I like working with people. I like seeing people. I like offering things that will actually help them, not abiding by the money rules of you're not allowed to do that because we won't get paid if you don't, or if you do it that way, we don't get paid. Or if you tell them about this, that we won't get paid. It's not this, it's not that. Anyways, all of that to say, when I would think about doing that for 40 years, my soul would die on the inside. I just thought, I can't be in the healthcare system for 40 years. I can't do it. I'm watching so many things that are just not right at all, and I can't play a part in it. I won't do it for the next 40 years. I love the parents. I love the caregivers. I love the children. I love what I do. I cannot buy into the corruption of healthcare. Like, I'm witnessing it every single day. I can't do it. And a piece of my soul would die. And I was watching all of my, I guess you could say, colleagues or my peers that I was coaching with in this group. They knew what they wanted. And most of them were like, I'm going to start this, entrepreneurship journey. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I admired that so much, but I didn't have the confidence yet. I didn't have all of my own limiting beliefs sorted through. I hadn't healed a lot that I thought maybe I had healed in therapy. I hadn't. I was essentially I guess the 17 years of therapy, shoving all of my stuff down into the locker or the vault and not really looking at it. Like, I would talk it out in therapy, but I wasn't actually understanding how to cope with everything and heal it and move on and not have all of these limiting beliefs, and how to I didn't know how to stop all of my self-sabotaging behaviors and my patterns. So whenever I was watching all of my peers just soar, that was my experience in coaching. It was so painful. I was so proud of them, but I was watching them soar. And they would start these businesses, and the next thing you know, they were making, $70,000, and they were quitting their careers, and they were making $100,000 and then $200,000. And as excited as I was for them, I was in the pity party of, I feel sorry for myself. I don't know what I want. And while they were getting coaching on their dreams and their goals and their business and all of this, every time the coaching would come to me, it's like, I'm still angry about so-and-so in my family. I'm still angry about what so-and-so did to me. It was so I still had so much work to get through on my own victim mentality. And I remember trying to skip ahead and just being I just want to figure out what I want to do with my life. And my coach would be like, well, that will come later. And I'm like, but I just want to figure it out now. Everybody in my, all of my peers are figuring all of this out, and they're going and they're doing the thing, and they're making all the money, and they're able to live their dream life. And I'm watching them, and I just feel like I'm stuck. time is going so slow. I don't feel like I'm really progressing like they are. And she looked at me through Zoom and she was like, Macy, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is like the power of a coach, but also where you just want to die or like punch them in the face lovingly, but it's like, ugh, don't tell me this crap. She looked at me and she was like, Macy, it's probably going to take you another 2 years just to heal all of the stuff that you've buried before you will even know what to do as an entrepreneur or what you want to do in your life. I'm serious. She said, I really, if I were you, would focus on your healing and your mindset and all of the things that you need to clear out for the next 2 years. Don't even think about your career. Don't even do it. She said, because if you don't clean all of this up that you're dealing with, you will not make it as an entrepreneur or whatever you decide to do. Like this stuff is going to follow you because this stuff is impacting how you currently show up every single day. You've got to clean it up. And I know just from working with you, you have a lot to sort through. You need to give yourself time, and it's probably going to take about 2 years before you figure it out. And I hated hearing that. Like like even just now saying it, I was like, it was so daunting. Like, what do you mean? No, I don't want it to take that long. But I really did listen, and I really did lean into the fact of like, okay, if I just didn't resist my work, and if I just stopped comparing myself to all of my peers, like then how would I show up? And I just started showing up and doing all of my work on myself, all of my healing, all of the messiness, all of the ugly, yucky things that I didn't like. I just started working on. And it did. It took me exactly 2 years. But you know what? At the end of the 2 years, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was to be a coach. And basically, whenever I started my business as a coach, things, progressed pretty darn quickly. I mean, I like compared to other, coaches in the industry, some could consider me a slow burn. But really, I was 10 steps ahead because any of the clients that were drawn to me, I was like, I know exactly how to help you because I didn't rush this process. I know exactly how to help you because instead of skipping over my work, I have set in all my work. I've done all my work. And I can spot it whenever someone's trying to skip it, and I can spot it when someone's brain is freaking out. I can spot all of it because I had to lean into all of those parts of myself. I didn't have to, but I chose to. And that's what makes me the coach that I am today. And I do consider myself one damn good coach, okay? So I can spot a lot of the things that people's brains are doing because I was very diligent about my own healing and my own work. So when you feel plateaued, when you feel like you're going backwards versus forwards, what I was saying earlier is there's a level of choosing your hard that you have to do at all stages of your healing or your growth. You're always choosing between one of two things. So for me, it was like I can choose the hard of being an occupational therapist forever, going to work and having many days where I feel miserable, like not knowing if I'm ever going to be able to make enough money where this feels like I can do more than survive. Money's choosing for me. Like my salary isn't enough to do things I desire to do, but only enough to pay for the things I need to absolutely do. And sometimes that's not even enough. So like choosing work every day and to show up as an occupational therapist, that was hard. Okay, so that was one hard that I was choosing. The other hard was to start working on my business, to start a podcast, to put myself out there on social media, to read more books, to know more, to keep paying for my coach, to learn everything that I could learn, to do my own work. That was also hard. And what we do is we choose the hard that's just a little teeny tiny bit easier. So it's hard being an entrepreneur, and it was hard being an occupational therapist, but one was just a little teeny tiny bit easier. And for a long time, the one that was a little bit easier was the occupational therapy because I felt safe. I felt like this is a job I will have forever because it's healthcare. At least I know in general, like what my paychecks are gonna be. Versus like if I'm an entrepreneur, I never know where my next paycheck is coming. I never know when I'm going to get the next client. I never know if I'm going to have a roof over my head or food on the table. Like all of that felt really, really hard. Versus occupational therapy, it was a different kind of hard. It was like, yeah, waking up each day to do this when it's not what my soul is calling me to do is hard, but it's a little less hard than deciding to be an entrepreneur, right? So this is what I mean by the choose your hard. And we will choose the one that's a little less hard day in and day out because it's just a little bit easier until there is a day where that one that we've been choosing becomes harder than the alternative. And I hit my day, I call it drawing your line in the sand, the day, your day of disgust, where whatever hard you've been choosing becomes so much harder to do. And there came a point in my life where it was during COVID where I'm like, this job as an occupational therapist during COVID is so much harder than being an entrepreneur, even though my entrepreneurial track is not where I want it to be. And that is when it flips, when you choose the other hard. So I like clients go through this too, right? They might be in a toxic relationship, let's say they're married to a narcissist or to someone who just doesn't treat them right. They're fighting all of the time. Life feels really, really hard in this relationship. They feel like they deserve better, but it's just so hard to think about leaving, right? So there's the hard of every day whenever I come home from work and I walk into the house with my partner and we're fighting and we're arguing and we're not happy and, we don't maybe have a good friendship or good relationship and the kids are seeing us fighting, that is hard. But when I think of the other hard, that would be divorcing. That would be people talking about us. That would be people not understanding the situation. That would be having to deal with the moods and the anger of my ex or partner. That might mean like splitting custody with the kids. It might mean a financial war. It might mean like obviously we lose maybe healthcare, or I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe if I was a stay-at-home mom, like I don't know what I'm going to do for money or where I'm going to work, or if I'll even be able to work and pay for daycare. Like there's so many unknowns, right? So what I will see in clients is there's women who feel stuck and trapped and miserable in a relationship, and that's hard. But the other hard is to leave and to find their own happiness and to figure out their independence and to deal with all the emotions of all of that. And that's also hard. So for the time being, they'll choose the one that's easiest. And the one that's easiest is, well, I'll just kind of live through this relationship and how toxic it feels and how unhappy I am. Okay. And then eventually there comes a day where when they've maybe worked through enough of their stuff, they've built their emotional intelligence, they're working on their mindset, their confidence has built up. There comes a day where they're ready to draw their line in the sand and they're like, it's intolerable. I've grown so much as a person. I can't allow the toxicity. I can't allow the verbal abuse. I can't allow the emotional abuse. I can't allow my kids to see this. I can't do this anymore. Staying is now harder than leaving. I will deal with the consequences of leaving, right? It's a different hard. Both are hard, but I will choose my hard. And I'm going to choose the one now that feels a little easier. And now leaving feels easier than staying. That's what I mean. So all of this to say, when it comes to when you feel like you're taking steps back versus forward, or you feel like you've hit a plateau, or you feel like you're failing in your self-work, I think there is a few things that can be happening. I think your brain can feel really, really tired. I also think it's up against a hard that it feels resistant to. Like you're aiming for whatever goals or dreams that you have, and your brain knows there's still a good amount of journey to get you there. And your brain also predicts that it's not going to be easy. It doesn't feel easy. It doesn't feel like we're ever going to get there. It just feels so far away. And it's kind of like you've been walking in the desert for a really long time and you're thirsty, and you know if you turn around, there's a body of water. It's far away, but at least you know it's there. And it's almost like the brain's resistance of, I don't even want to see what's on the other side of that mountain because it just feels so hard. I think we're stuck. And imagine like if you just sat down in the middle of the desert, you know that miles and miles behind you where you came from, there's water, but that just feels far away. And you have an idea or maybe a good feeling that on the other side in front of you of this mountain that you can see in the distance, there's like streams of fresh water. But what your brain does, it's like, that just feels so far away and so impossible. I don't know if we're ever going to make it. I don't know if we can make it in one piece. I don't know if we're going to make it alive. Like, I just don't know. We're kind of stuck. I don't know if we want to keep going. Life was so much easier when we just drank from the body of water that we had back there. Don't you want to go do that? And so you're at almost this war within yourself where it's like, do I stop all of the work that I've been doing and go back? Or do I just sit here and rest and mope about it and feel maybe victim-y? Or do I take the steps forward and keep going until I get to that mountain and see what's on the other side of it? Okay, that's kind of what we come up against whenever we're at a plateau. And it's a decision you get to make, right? You get to decide what you do with that. Am I going forward? Am I just going to stay here? Am I going to go backwards? Where am I going to go with this? I've opened up the vault and it has felt very hard. And I kind of see the light at the tunnel, but not as bright as I would have hoped. I don't see it yet. And I don't know if I want to keep going, right? Your brain is like, I just don't know. I don't know if we should. Do we have to keep going? And I will tell you that I feel like at every level, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're not, or it's your personal life, that everybody gets to this point where you just kind of feel so fatigued. You know, I still experience it at my level. I'm growing as a person continually. I'm growing as an entrepreneur. And sometimes I just want to lay down in the middle of the desert, so to speak, and just be like, it's so far away. I don't know. I'm stuck, freaking stuck. I just want someone to wave the magic wand and let me get to the other side of the mountain so I can just be in the stream of water, whatever is over there, gold, treasures, possibilities, everything I could ever want. Like, can't somebody just teleport me there? Wouldn't that be easy? That's what all of us, I think, are wanting. And it's just not what we're going to get. So why do I feel like I'm stuck? Why do I feel like I'm failing? More than likely because you're in that messy middle. More than likely, your brain is feeling resistance as to what it knows you have to do to get where you're trying to go. It's up against the other hard, right? You've been doing a hard thing, but to actually get yourself over the hump, you would have to choose a new hard. So I always give an example of like working out. Let's say that you've been doing really good working out. You've done good, eating healthy. You're getting your body together the way that maybe you want. And now you just feel like you're stuck at a plateau and you feel like it's not moving. I don't even really think that I'm ever going to get there. I don't see any changes. I'm plateaued. I'm stuck, right? More than likely, it's because your brain anticipates how much more work is necessary or what you will actually have to do to change it. And when you think about that, your brain is like, I don't want to do the things required of me to change this permanently. That to me is when we've hit a plateau. There are things that we have to do to create lasting change. And when the brain doesn't want to do them and you feel resistance and you're like, I'm not doing the work I know I need to be doing, it's likely because your brain is anticipating that you have more of a journey to walk or you need to make decisions that feel very uncomfortable to you. You have to feel feelings that feel very uncomfortable to you. And if you're not willing to feel them, if you're not willing to practice your emotional intelligence, if you're not willing to continue working on your mindset, it's easier to say, I'm at a plateau. I'm stuck. I'm failing at my work. I am resisting the very things that I know will help me, right? Same thing with people who have habits. If you are an alcoholic or you struggle with drinking, you might feel like I'm at a plateau. I'm at a plateau. I don't know. Why am I at a plateau? Well, because you know that there is going to be some serious work you have to do to never pick up a bottle or an alcoholic beverage ever again. And your brain has resistance to it because your brain wants comfort. Your brain wants you to have fun. Your brain has stories associated with alcohol. Your brain doesn't want you to change. Your brain would like you to just easily pick up the bottle and drink and feel better or have fun or do whatever alcohol has done for your system. And if you've been working on it, and let's say you've been sober for, let's say 6 months, and you've got the angel and the devil on your shoulder, the little devil is like, I just feel like we're at a plateau and I don't even know if this is worth it. And we broke our promise to ourselves. We had a drink. Maybe we should go backwards and just kind of keep drinking. I mean, we were sober for 6 months, but we just broke it when we went out with the girls, and I don't even know if this work is worth it anymore since I can never change. Obviously, I thought I was changing because I did 6 months really well and then I broke it. So obviously I'm a failure. And right, all of these stories start coming back. All of your old habits and all of that little devil on your shoulder, like, this is who we are. This is who we've been. We're stuck with, we can't create lasting change. We've messed it up. If we start over, that's going to really suck. Because we just mess it up. We do really well for a while and then we mess it up. Okay. And then your brain tells you I'm stuck. I'm failing at my work. I don't know why I'm not doing any more of my work. And maybe you self-sabotage for a bit and you feel like you're stuck and you're plateaued. And really what it comes down to is that your brain is like, you know what? If you're really going to do this, it's going to take some commitment and it's going to take some work. And here are the guidelines of what's going to have to happen. And our brain looks at the guidelines and it's like, ew, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. Please, no. And sometimes we listen to our brain and we go backwards. And sometimes we just have to give ourselves grace of being in the messy middle. And that's when that is when it's so great to have a support system. That's why group coaching can be so great, because your peers hear your goals. Your peers hear the things that you're working on or that you want to work on, that you want to be better at. And whenever you start slipping, it's great to have those cheerleaders, those accountability partners, those people who can catch your patterns, because maybe they've even had those patterns. They're able to offer what they've experienced and what they're seeing, and they're able to catch your blind spots. In addition to me, group coaching is so powerful for that. And, sometimes we need that accountability, and that's why it is great to have a coach in general, whether you're working with them one-on-one or you're in a group, because our brain will brain. That's the easiest way to say it. Your brain is going to brain. And my guess is that you're actually not failing at your self-work at all. You're just coming up against a new level of yourself. You're at the line of jumping over and being on the other side. And your brain just anticipates it being so much work and so much emotion and so much stuff it doesn't want to deal with, that it's easier to believe the story of I've plateaued or I'm failing. That's an easier story for your brain. So don't believe it. It's not true. Take a rest if you need to take a rest. Talk it out. If you already have a coach, talk it out with them. Talk about the struggle. Talk about how you feel like you're failing. Get clear on why. Maybe there are reasons under there that you don't even know about. So I encourage you to explore that, because I have been there too. So don't feel like you're alone in this. I have been there too, where I've been so resistant to doing any more work. I'm like, I don't want to become any more aware. It's just making life feel really hard to be so self-aware. I felt that resistance, but also I know that there's always been good things on the other side when I've decided to keep going. And that's ultimately what keeps me going now, because I still have a brain that's going to brain, and sometimes wants to throw in the towel and have a full hissy fit and pout and quit. My brain loves to offer me that we can quit all the time. Every time something feels hard, I'm like, I'm just going to quit and I'm going to go scoop ice cream. That's my brain's favorite thing to ruminate in. I always, whenever entrepreneurship feels hard, I'm like, I'm going to quit and I'm going to stop working on myself and I'm going to go scoop ice cream for people so I don't have to think and I don't have to feel, and all I have to do is scoop something into an ice cream cone and hand it to people. That feels so simple. And then I think, but is that what I really want? No, I just think it's the easiest thing for my brain right now. It doesn't want to choose any other hards. It just doesn't want to do it. So I hope that this episode helps whoever asked that, whether you asked both of those or there were multiple of you that kind of feel like you're in this space. Hang in there. Hang in there. Give yourself some grace. Again, take some deep breaths. Rest if you need to, but know you're on the brink of doing really good things, of being on the other side of it, but you got to keep going. And, some people choose not to keep going because this work is not for the faint of heart. So some people will go back and walk back to what they've always known. That's the easiest thing for us to do. The trail is already paved. We know what we're going to get when we go back. And some people are okay with going back and getting what they've always got. And then some of us are relentless and we're like, absolutely not. I know what that path looks like. I don't like it. And so I just need to put myself in the most supportive of places or rooms around the most supportive people to pull me out of that path. I don't want to go back to that. And I don't necessarily feel like there's a wrong answer. Everybody's got to choose what's best for them. But I think in your gut, you know which one you really, really want. And so if you know you're moving forward, what are the supports that you have in place to make sure you stay on that forward path? And if you need that help, I am here. So are my groups. We've got some different things that can help you so you can schedule a consult at any time. All right. I hope this episode was helpful. And really quickly, it's the month of February. If you have been looking into the hybrid experience program where you get one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and a retreat in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, check out more on MacyRenee.com because the whole month of February, there is a 6-month payment plan. Several of you said you needed a 6-month payment plan in order to be able to put yourself in the next round. So that is what is available the entire month of February. If you have any questions, reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at MacyRenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at MacyRenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.